There's something strangely magical about seeing fictional vehicles sitting in the real world. One minute you're wandering through Southampton city centre looking for somewhere to escape the heat. The next you're standing face to face with a time machine, the Batmobile, and a talking Pontiac from 1980s television. For 1 week during the May school holidays, this huge open space on Western Esplanade beside West Quay shopping centre, tucked between Southampton's medieval city walls and the modern bars and restaurants, was transformed into a miniature Hollywood motor show. I'm Stuart McLachlan, but you can call me that guy in the Firebird. Stick around for today's video where I'm taking a closer look at the 2026 Pixar Cars outdoor exhibition of famous TV and movie cars. You're not going to want to miss this. Now, before anyone gets too excited, these stunning vehicles are replicas and tribute builds, rather than original screen-used examples. But honestly, that didn't seem to matter to the crowds one bit. And there were crowds. The weather was absolutely scorching for the most part, proper everyone in Britain forgetting how the sun works temperatures. Kids were cooling off in the fountains nearby, while families claimed the large steps around the site as improvised seating areas, surviving almost entirely on ice lollies and cold drinks. It actually created a brilliant atmosphere, busy, noisy, cheerful, and surprisingly nostalgic. The exhibition itself featured 10 vehicles from famous TV shows and movies, some better known than others. And naturally, the first thing everyone spotted from about half a mile away was the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo. What's interesting about the original cartoon van is that the animators intentionally kept the design fairly ambiguous to avoid licensing issues. It clearly drew inspiration from mid-1960s American panel vans like the Ford Econoline, Chevrolet G-Series, and Dodge A100, but you couldn't really point to any particular make and model. That's why, in real life, people have recreated the Mystery Machine using all sorts of different vans over the years. This particular example is based on a GMC Vandura, and honestly it works perfectly. Bright colours, psychedelic graphics, flower-powered vibes. Kids absolutely loved it, but adults seemed equally excited, probably because Scooby-Doo occupies that rare cultural space where almost everybody recognises it instantly, regardless of age. Next up was the Jurassic Park Jeep Wrangler, not to be confused with one of the Park Tour Ford Explorers from the film. It's fascinating how a relatively simple Jeep became one of the most recognisable vehicles in cinema history. That's the power of good design and storytelling. Put a logo, some mud tyres and a cool paint scheme on something, and suddenly everyone's mentally preparing to outrun a T-Rex. Awesome. Then there was the 1965 Ford Anglia Deluxe, styled after the flying car from Harry Potter. Now, interestingly, an actual screen-used Harry Potter Anglia lives not far from here at the National Motor Museum in Bewley, Hampshire. But even as a replica, this one attracted loads of attention because the Anglia is already such an oddball little car to begin with. Tiny, charming, slightly awkward looking, which somehow made it perfect for the Wizarding World. The Disney Pixar-inspired vehicles were hugely popular with younger visitors. There was a Lightning McQueen tribute built from a Mitsubishi, Tow Mater recreated from a Land Rover, and even Professor Z brought to life using a smart car, which honestly feels like the most appropriate casting choice imaginable. Kids absolutely swarmed these cars. Meanwhile, many of the parents probably felt quite relieved that none of them actually talked. Although admittedly, if one particular vehicle in this exhibition had started speaking, most people would probably have recognised it immediately with a nod of approval. But more on that in a moment. One vehicle that got a more confused reaction was the Hawkins Police Department Chevrolet Blazer from the TV show Stranger Things. Now, I'll be honest, I've never actually watched Stranger Things, so I'm throwing this over to you lot in the comments. Is this a good replica? And more importantly, should I finally watch the show? Reactions here were genuinely mixed. Some people recognised it instantly, others walked around it trying to work out whether it was from a police drama, an American sheriff's department, or just somebody's extremely enthusiastic fantasy. I thought it looked pretty cool, but I didn't have the cultural connection to it. Then we arrive at what was undoubtedly the holy trinity for Gen X visitors: the DeLorean time machine, the Batmobile, and KITT. You could genuinely see the demographic shift happening in real time. Middle-aged men suddenly walking faster, people explaining plot lines to their children that the children absolutely did not ask for. The usual. The Back to the Future DeLorean replica drew huge attention all day, and interestingly, this one was configured like the original 1985 movie version, meaning no Mr. Fusion reactor from the sequels. A lot of casual fans actually expect to see the later setup now, but personally, I quite like seeing the cleaner original configuration. It feels more grounded. Well, as grounded as a plutonium-powered time machine can feel, I guess. The 1989 era Batmobile replica looked fantastic. Long, low, aggressive. Still one of the greatest vehicle designs ever committed to film. But I do have one tiny complaint. The registration plate. Now, yes, I completely understand why these replicas need plates to be road legal, but surely, for a static exhibition away from public roads, it could have been removed temporarily, right? Because once you notice it, your brain stops seeing Gotham's ultimate crime-fighting machine and starts seeing somebody who's one pothole away from an MOT advisory. And this gets even funnier. Because the registration was visible, I actually looked up the MOT history afterwards and discovered the car is based on a late 1990s Jaguar XJ. What? Now, to be fair, the MOT history doesn't reveal anything catastrophic, just the usual collection of minor faults and advisories which appear to have been sorted properly over time. But the image of Batman taking the Batmobile into a test centre absolutely destroys me. Just imagine it. Right then, sir. Everything generally looks alright, but there is a slight issue with the offside fog lamp, and your windscreen washers appear a bit weak. Somehow that feels less protector of Gotham and more slightly frustrated Jaguar owner. And finally, my favourite, the Knight Industries 2000.
KITT for easy reference. A KITT if you prefer.
Now, this is where my Pontiac audience will expect me to become unnecessarily specific. KITT, of course, was based on a third-generation Pontiac Firebird Trans Am and was featured in the hit NBC television series Knight Rider, which originally aired between 1982 and 1986. This replica appears to use the later Season 4 nose cone, as designed by legendary car customizer George Barris. Although I prefer the earlier Michael Chaffee version. The interior appears to resemble the Season 2 setup, but it's difficult to confirm because the doors were closed and the car was roped off. Yes, this is deeply nerdy information. No, I will not apologise. But details matter with cars like this because KITT wasn't just a television prop. For many people, the Knight Industries 2000 represented the future itself. Artificial intelligence, digital dashboards, autonomous driving, concepts that seemed impossibly futuristic in the early 1980s. And now, modern hatchbacks shout at you for drifting too close to a hedge. Funny how things work out. Now, admittedly, I was slightly disappointed there were only 10 vehicles in this exhibition overall. If you travelled a long distance specifically for the event, I can imagine some people leaving wanting a bit more. But as somebody local to Southampton, yeah, I'd still say it was worth it, because events like this aren't really just about the cars, they're about shared memories. Parents introducing children to the films and shows they grew up with, friends taking photos together, random strangers discussing whether the Batmobile could beat KITT in a race. There's no way it could, by the way. It creates atmosphere, it brings people into the city, because sometimes all it takes is 10 replica cars sitting in the sunshine to remind us why certain machines never really leave our imagination. Not because of horsepower, not because of rarity, but because somewhere along the line, they became part of our stories too. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments, which one would you take home if you could? I've been Stuart McLachlan, and as always, you can call me that guy in the Firebird. I'll see you again soon.